What's going on, bottom line viewers? Exciting day in the NFL. Exciting day for the Bottom Line View. We are here. It's Mitch. It's Adam, otherwise known as AC, and Dilly Vanilli, Dylan. All right, so we're here, man, just to discuss the crazy NFL day that was today, and also it's still going on. So as things break, we will try and give you the best information as possible. I will do my Adam Schefter impersonation once the news comes out. I'll do my very best. Ian Rappaport, you know, I'll try and do that. But we're going to be here and we're going to be discussing these big moves because there's so much to talk about. We haven't even talked about yesterday's news. I was looking at this news and I was like, holy crap, we haven't talked about Brandon Marshall. We haven't talked about, you know, all this other stuff that happened like a couple of days ago, which we have to get to as well. So we are here. We just started. We already have 7 viewers here, guys. Let us know, you know, what's going on. Let us know your team and what you liked about your team's trades, signings, whatever it was. Let us know if you want us to answer any questions. That is why we are doing a live chat, and that is why we're here to discuss it with you guys as well. And we'll get to as many questions as we can. But we're just going to start off by talking about the big deals and kind of the deals that stuck out to us. So let's start off with the man in Philly. You know, let's start off with the man in Philly because we have an Eagles fan here in Adam. AC, man, what's going on? What's going through your head with the signing of Alshon friggin' Jeffrey, bro?
Well, like even before this whole day, because I've been off school, so I went golfing today. But in the morning, I woke up to a text saying we got Torrey Smith for $3 million for 15 years. And I was like, okay, a nice piece. You know, didn't play that great in San Fran. Got released. You know, it's a nice piece. We'll still have J Matt. Now we might, you know, looking forward, we might draft a receiver. But then as things progressed, and all of a sudden, I was on the golf course. You guys. All of a sudden, our chat was blowing up. Alshon Jeffrey. I totally didn't think it was possible because of the money Alshon was talking about. Like, it was just a couple days ago where Alshon wanted to be the highest paid player long-term or highest paid receiver long-term. So I was like, there's no way. The Eagles coming into today, $6 million in cap space. Obviously, we released Connor Barwin. It saves us $10 million in that cap. But then to sign it 1 year, $14 million is perfect. He's going to be a number 1 receiver, maybe up there now to contend against the Redskins, Cowboys. They should all be scared. The Giants, they should be scared now. Alshon Jeffrey with Carson Wentz. You know, now you have Jordan Matthews. They might trade him, but it's just huge because we haven't had a game breaker free agent on the offensive side of the ball probably since T.O.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. When I saw the Alshon Jeffrey move, I was saying the same thing. Cowboys, look out. Giants, look out. Redskins, look out, because I was a big fan of Carson Wentz in his first season. He didn't wow anybody, but I thought he did a really good job. And their thing was they didn't have receivers. Like, their receivers couldn't get separation. Right. When they got separation, they couldn't catch. I mean, Nelson Aguilar is arguably the worst receiver I've seen in the last few years.
He's going to be out the door pretty soon here now.
Yeah, so they got Alshon Jeffrey, and they also got Torrey Smith. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Torrey Smith. He was better in Baltimore. He was pretty good. He can stretch the field. And I think something you guys did miss last season was speed, because ever since you gave up Deshaun Jackson, he was that guy that could go deep. Torrey Smith can do that for you and can help in that regard. But the guy, Alshon Jeffrey, I mean, this guy is a beast. I don't think people realize how much of a beast this guy is. And I thought it was a good deal only for 1 year just to see how it was. And I'm interested to see why he did that deal. Maybe you have more information on that.
Well, what I'm thinking is that, or what the talk is, he's had injury problems. It's hard for him to stay on the field for a full 16 games of the season. And I think he liked what the Eagles were doing. Okay, take $14 million this year, and then obviously he's trying to play for a contract. And if he plays great, he will get that top end and money. And I'm hoping next season, I think the Eagles will have more cap space. So obviously, if he has a great season, we've talked about the market for receivers. If you want to keep them, you have to pay them, because like we've seen in free agency with at any position, if your team is not willing to pay a player what he thinks he's worth, there are 31 other teams that are willing to step up. And look at all the cap space some of these teams have. And the money that's being thrown around today is just insane. but that's what the market does, right? And, you know, teams are always going to be willing to pay max money to get these guys.
Yeah, and Alshon Jeffrey, I just got a comment on this guy's skill set. I mean, he's a big receiver. He's not necessarily fast, but, you know, he can get separation, and he's great with his body. He's probably one of the best, you know, receivers in the league at going up and getting the ball. So that's going to help a young quarterback like Carson Wentz. Like, even when, as a Patriots fan, they had the Bears in training camp, and, like, there was just report after report after report, like, every day how Alshon Jeffrey would be mossing guys. Like, he was going up and catching ridiculous passes that, like, nobody could defend. So he can do those sort of things that I think he can bring to Philly and definitely help that offense out for sure.
And just to add on that, it's going to be, because I know last week there was trade rumors regarding Jordan Matthews. So it's going to be interesting to say, because that's, you know, Torrey Smith could be a guy I could see being cut. You know what I mean? You sign him this deal, because that's kind of what happened in San Fran. He plays 1 year and doesn't play that much. But it's going to be interesting because, you know, that's a crowded wide receiver group. Obviously, Alshon being 1 and everyone else being like 3.
Well, I guarantee you
Jordan Matthews. See, I've never had a problem with Jordan Matthews as the 2. It's always been Jordan Matthews can't be a 1 for me.
I think he'll be a great 2, and hopefully they will keep him. I just know there were rumors, but as we've seen with rumors just getting thrown around, especially with your Patriots and you know, everything, Garoppolo, Cooks. There's so many rumors get thrown around. It's hard to figure out what's real, but I'm glad the Alshon Jeffrey thing was real, and you know, that might be my next jersey.
There you go. Maybe we have a deal in place. We'll see what happens.
But Dylan, I like Alshon Jeffrey here because he plays in a really bad team in Chicago. We discussed many a times how Jay Cutler is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And now he's going to a quarterback that's developing. You know, he can throw the deep ball. I think it's going to be a nice addition for Philadelphia. And yes, as a Cowboys fan, it hurts. But I must say it was a great pick for Philadelphia. I will survive.
All right. So let's continue on. So we got some of the Eagles things out of the way. We might get back to them in a little bit. Let's start off with the big news in New York, because we didn't cover that. And it's another receiver, a receiver that used to play with Alshon Jeffrey in Chicago. Now he's in New York. He's beside Odell Beckham. There was, you know, Brandon Marshall, news that he was going to go to maybe Baltimore, which I thought would be a good fit. Maybe the Patriots, you know, maybe a couple other teams here and there. But he ends up in New York. He likes New York. He switches from the Jets to the Giants. I have 2 questions. Do you like this move first off? And then do you think that this makes the Giants a playoff threat?
I like this move for Brandon Marshall because he has Odell Beckham on his side. We thought the Victor Cruz thing was going to work with him as a combo. That didn't work out. Victor Cruz got released. So they were looking for another stand-up receiver along with Sterling Shepard as a 3 to make an impact. So for Brandon Marshall, I think this is a perfect fit considering the last couple of years he's been on some pretty crappy teams with Chicago and the Jets. He hasn't had a quarterback that's reliable. Now, I'm not the biggest Eli fan. I think he's pretty overrated. However, at times, if he's going to go throw to a good receiver, the receivers do have some pretty good seasons along with him. So, you know, I think this is a good for him. I don't think this really makes him a contender per se. I don't think it's going to be that much of an improvement. Maybe they'll do something in this division because I think the NFC East is going to be one of the better divisions next year. But I don't necessarily qualify them as like, the head honchos of the NFC East.
Yeah, well, obviously the Cowboys are still there. They won the division last year, so obviously they're the favorite. Adam, what did you think of the move for Marshall in New York?
I think it was a nice ad. I think the big question mark still is Eli. It doesn't matter. You know, it's all comes down if who can get those guys the ball. ODB we've seen is one of the best, right? Shepard is I think Shepard is going to have a very good sophomore season. And then looking at their they didn't have to add much on their defense because their defense held them in games, and they put the money in their defense last season. So I think the biggest question
and Janoris Jenkins. There you go.
Yeah, and I think with adding Marshall, it makes them better obviously. And obviously, if you check out my mock draft, I have them drafting David Njoku, a very athletic tight end, which that could maybe push him over the top as well. But at the end of the day, one thing, I'm not going to say it's always been Marshall's fault. Marshall has been in the league a long time, has not once made it to the postseason, the playoffs, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. I was going to bring that up as well. Again, I don't think, like you said, it's his fault, because he's if you look at his numbers, he's top 20 in like everything, basically all-time standards. He's been one of the best receivers for a long, long time. But I think this is a good move for both sides. First off, I think Brandon Marshall brings a skill set that they didn't previously have. You look at him, he's about 6'4". He's big. He's a red zone guy. That'll help him, catch touchdowns. Even Brandon Marshall, if he slows down a little bit, he can still, get that push off the fade and back in the end zone and catch it. He did that even for the Jets with terrible quarterbacks there. I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I also think that he's changed personality-wise and character-wise. I think he'll help Odell kind of mature. I think that's something. They are already friends, so that's something to go off of. And then I think that he'll help Odell's game, because he'll be there mentoring him in a similar, let's just say, a Chris Carter to Randy Moss way, maybe. So that would be interesting to watch. But I think the Giants are definitely a team to, if they put all the pieces together, they certainly have the potential to be a Super Bowl team. I think, if everybody plays, if everybody maxes out their potential this season, they can easily win the Super Bowl, because we know if Eli goes on a hot streak, they're tough to stop. It's all about, like Adam said, Eli, I think, and, Dylan kind of referred to that as well. We aren't big fans of Eli Manning, especially lately, but if he's playing well, this team's going to be dangerous, because this defense was really impressive last year and only got better as the season went on. The offense is going to be probably a little bit better with the addition of Brandon Marshall. We got to remember, last season Victor Cruz was terrible. I mean, he was awful, and that's going to be a big upgrade there. They still need a run game. They still need to get a couple offensive linemen to protect Eli and give him some time. But I think with that defense and that passing game, they'll definitely be a threat. It just is, how good is Eli still going to be next season? That's going to be the big question, like we said. So I do think that potential-wise they have a chance. Moving on, let's talk about Pierre Garcon. I think we have a couple people in the chat that are 49ers fans. So Christian Mays, I think, is one of them.
I pray for you, by the way.
Yeah, I really like what San Francisco is doing. I'm rooting for San Francisco. I'm a big Kyle Shanahan guy. I said in the offseason, I said last season, sign this man up. Pay this man, because he's going to be a good coach. That's what I said all last season. He was a really good offensive coordinator basically wherever he went, even with Cleveland. He brings a guy from Cleveland into San Francisco named Brian Hoyer. Now, Brian Hoyer actually was really good for Cleveland that one season when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. He happened to get hurt, and that slowed the entire team down. But now they bring Brian Hoyer in. Whether he's going to be the starter or not, that's kind of unknown. They might get, a different quarterback. They might get just Brian Hoyer to start, but it's going to be interesting. I think Brian Hoyer could do the job, and, for the first season there, could actually play pretty well. Because, for example, I don't think Matt Ryan by himself without an elite offensive mind would be the MVP. No. We saw what he was in the past without Kyle Shanahan. You add Kyle Shanahan to the mix, Matt Ryan becomes MVP. I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's a lot to do with Kyle Shanahan. You add, a quarterback like Brian Hoyer, who can win games and actually I think has about a 500, maybe even a positive record in the NFL. I think they can do positive things. Their defense needs a lot of work. I think their offense, signing Pierre Garcon was a solid move. Again, another guy that has experience in that system. They got a Taylor Gabriel kind of, player in Goodwin, who is super freaking fast.
Really fast.
And they already have Carlos Hyde. They have a decent offensive line. I think that they can work a pretty decent offense next year. Brian Hoyer was actually pretty good for the Bears. Defensively, it's going to be interesting. I still think they need a lot of work. The draft is coming. They'll probably spend it on a corner or something like that. But I think the 49ers are on their way up. Not to mention they actually got the best fullback in the league in free agency as well.
Mm. Well, to your point, he played fantastic in Chicago in those 5 or 6 games he was in there. He didn't exactly get the wins, but he was putting up like crazy numbers last year. So Brian Hoyer, if he finds the right players and the right team, I think he can work. Kyle Shanahan, we've been praising him all last year, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl. One of the best offensive coordinators, now going to be a head coach. I think it's a great decision for them, for the 49ers, to get their organization up. They've got Pierre Garcon. I think they overpaid him. However, they're still going to need big-time players, and Pierre Garcon is a legitimate receiver, so you got to do what you got to do. Defense is going to need a lot of work. That's probably why I'm still a little bit skeptical on how they're going to be in the next couple of years. So maybe this year and possibly next year, they'll be hovering around, I don't know, full 4 or 5 wins. However, I think afterwards, once they get their defense fully structured, I think this is going to be a good team. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, probably 2018, 2019 season.
Yeah, see, I said in the chat like 2 days ago, I was like, San Fran to the playoffs in 2 years. I believe that. If they get a quarterback that can – I think even Brian Hoyer with the right supporting cast could do that because he did it in Houston. But I think, this team could be headed to the playoffs very soon. But Malcolm Smith was also added, just to throw that out there. Not that I think that's a huge add. I think he's been a little bit overrated throughout his career. But it was for a pretty, low contract, and he does provide some speed to the defense and some coverage ability.
Yeah, like somewhat. I still think they overpaid for Smith and Garcon. I'm a huge Garcon fan, especially in the NFC East, watching him play for the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years, Redskins, maybe 4. Yeah, but watching him play, I've always been a fan. Good hands, good speed, runs good routes, gets open. I like that move. Like Dylan said, I think they overpaid, but when you're a team like the Browns, like the 49ers, and you have so much cap space, I think you can afford to overpay just to get guys in your locker room and then deal with it there. Like we said, Kyle Shanahan's going to be a huge plus for them. And I feel for 49ers fans because I went through the post-Chip Kelly era, and you're lucky that you let him go when you did, because another year of Chip Kelly, your team would be in a lot worse shape than just 1 year with Chip Kelly.
Interesting.
Ooh, some shots fired at Chip Kelly. I see you, AC.
That's not shots fired. That's absolute truth.
It's absolute truth. Like, if he stayed another year, so when he signed with the Eagles, he had 1 year, and then the very next year he got full control in this offseason if he stayed with the 49ers, and just blew up the entire team. So they're lucky that they fired him when they did, and that was smart because it was easy just to give him 1 more year, which they didn't, which was a great call. Now they get Kyle Shanahan. They have a little more semblance of order, a little bit more leadership there, because at the end of the day, I don't know what 49ers fans watch because I didn't watch a lot of 49er games this season, but I know that Chip Kelly offense does not work in the NFL. You can't go, 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 go. It's a possession league. Look at the best teams. You want to keep the ball in your offensive hands. Go drive down the field methodically. You don't want to go, 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 because that just tires out and just kills your defense as well.
Well, and also that's more of the more college style, and that's where he was more better at compared to.
Yeah, but even in Oregon, he would win the game 49-40.
But that's when you had. But that's when you have depth too. You know what I mean? Yeah. You have 5 guys that are all the same, that are from all over the states. In the NFL, you don't have depth to do that, and and you're dealing with 19 to 22-year-olds. Those kids have can go forever, right? And you have backups that are just as fast, just as quick.
That's what I'm saying. He's a better college coach than
exactly.
Never works here.
Okay, let's talk about another sleeper team. What about those Jacksonville Jaguars? All right, so they made 3 ginormous moves, starting off with getting the Dallas Cowboys safety Barry Church. We will get to Dylan on that. And also AJ Abouye at the cornerback position, who I think is a top 10 corner in the league. And also defensive lineman Calais Campbell, who's been one of the better interior defensive linemen over the past couple of years. So this defense is shaping up to be one of the best in the NFL. You think about that cornerback tandem, Bouye and Ramsey. You have a good safety tandem with, I think, Gibson and Church. You have a few athletic linebackers. Puslesny's kind of underrated. Jack is there as well. And Telvin Smith, who is very fast and, athletic. The defensive end position is kind of up in the air. Fowler is kind of, on and off. He hasn't really had a good start to his career. But you add Calais Campbell to the front with Malik Jackson, who they signed last offseason.
Yeah.
So this is looking to be a very good defense on paper. And me and Dylan, especially last season, we were, two guys that were really crediting the Jacksonville defense last year. That was why they were in a lot of these games. But they still need to improve that offense. They need to get a quarterback. Once they get a quarterback, then they might make the playoffs. But this defense is just by itself going to keep them in a lot of games. I really believe in this defense.
Yeah, a lot of these pickups that I saw in the last couple of days from Jacksonville, I was pretty impressed because we were talking about in these recaps or the weekly recaps with me and Mitch how their offense is just barren. Like they've got players, they've got a little bit of talent, but they are not to the potential that they could be because of the quarterback. However, their defense has got a lot of room and growth. And Ramsey, I was talking about last year, that's the guy I thought Dallas was going to pick instead of Elliott, and he was a great pick for Jacksonville. With Barry Church, I got a lot of experience. I've watched him for years. He's a good safety. He does a lot of good things. He's more like he does a lot of the little things right, which I like out of a safety. They know how to pick apart certain players and key plays, and I think Church is a really good player for that. Good contract for him, and I think that defense is going to do a lot of things next year. I'm still going to say probably 6 or 7 wins. I don't think they're going to be playoff potential if they don't get a good quarterback either in agency or in the draft. I don't think they're exactly ready for them yet.
Yeah, I really like what they've done. I'll still give Bortles one more year. Because I was a fan. Like obviously a lot of garbage time, but coming into the draft when he got drafted, I was a fan because they have the pieces, and he's just a little off. But going back to their defense, can I tell you
the problem? I don't know if I ever told you the problem with Bortles.
Let's hear it.
Can I tell you the problem? Okay, so when your quarterback throws like that, like when he doesn't have a good, fluent throwing motion.
Yeah. I told you.
He throws like I don't even know what the hell this is, man.
I had the least potential in hype when that 2014 class hit.
He throws it straight at the ground, like half the time. I watched so many Jacksonville games because I had Allen Robinson on my fantasy football team. That was a disappointment. So he throws it straight at the ground right in front of Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson has a lot of potential. He's a very good receiver, like talent-wise. Didn't live up to it production-wise last year, mostly because he was double-teamed and Blake Bortles couldn't throw him the ball. But they have some talent. Robinson, Hearns are both pretty solid receivers. Also, who's the other kid there? Forgot his name, but they have another receiver there. Running back, they have Chris Ivory and TJ Yeldon, who aren't great, but they're not terrible. And I don't think they might get one in the draft, but I don't think they'll spend in the free agency. They might. There's been speculation that they will, but I don't really think they will. Offensive line does need some work, but quarterback, man, if they had a top 15 quarterback, this would be a playoff team, bar none. I don't have a doubt about that.
They did add Brandon Albert today as well, in that kind of weird trade with Miami. So it's like they did 2 separate trades. So both of them were for 7-round picks, but it's like 2 separate. So pretty much it was Julius Thomas for Brandon Albert for tackle. So I think that could be a benefit. Brandon Albert's a good player. He hasn't had the best couple of years, but, I think obviously they lose Jokel, so Brandon Albert steps in. And then looking at the draft now for the Jags, right? They're in that 4th pick. Do you go – because I had them taking a D end or someone to add to that D line, but now obviously I probably would rethink that. Now it's like, do you go with the safety? You got your corner. Now do you go with the safety like Jamal Adams, who's just an instant playmaker, leader for that young defense?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know if Dylan just left, but whatever. Anyways, we got a lot of discussion here in the chat. A lot about Romo. Romo trade. Seen some Raiders. I think people are calling out, their favorite teams. Of course, Bodo is in the chat. He's repping his Steelers. A lot of Jags talk because we were talking about the Jags. I think 8-8, 7-9. That's what everybody's saying. What else we got? Andrew Whitworth got overpaid. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, I think most of these guys really got overpaid.
Well,
There
if
was
you look at like if I'm sorry to cut you off, Adam, but I think the position to overpay, in my opinion, is offensive line.
for
The
sure.
position to overpay is offensive line. You need to protect your quarterback, and especially because they're putting such high stock into Jared Goff, even though, you know, I wouldn't. They need to protect Jared Goff and start up front. I know that Andrew Whitworth is kind of getting older. He's about mid-30s now. I think he's like 32, 33. But he's one of the elite tackles. He's probably like up there, top 10 tackle in the NFL. And I think he's going to remain that for the rest of his career. He's also a guy that he's a veteran. He's a good guy in every regard. Like everybody says how great of a leader and person he is. So maybe he can help a young team in LA get better. Did he get overpaid? Sure, maybe a little bit, but it's offensive line. I think that is the position to overpay, just like we saw with a couple other offensive linemen that we'll probably discuss in a little bit.
Yeah, and like going back, you know, like it's like you have some of these teams had so much cap space. They're not really thinking down the road where they might not, like the Eagles, right? The Eagles were at a point, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they had a lot of cap space. So they threw the money around helping to build their team. So I think what you're seeing with the Rams, the 49ers, the Browns, Jaguars, the team that have a lot of cap space, it's worth it. You know, if you want to get the guys, you need to pay top dollar, especially going to a market like Jacksonville. Like LA is obviously great, but going to a team like LA Rams, you got to be kind of hesitant. But sometimes with these guys, you know, they sometimes they think in dollar signs. Obviously they want to win Super Bowls, but whoever is going to throw the most money at you, I think it becomes less about scheme and more about, you know, let's just make a good payday before I retire.
There were a couple moves yesterday for the Baltimore Ravens. I just want to touch on that. They re-signed Ryan Mallett, and they also signed one of the bigger safeties on the market, Tony Jefferson, and they signed Danny Woodhead. So any comments on those moves at all, guys? I know that I need to comment on my boy Danny Woodhead. I wish him the best, but I don't know how I'm going to cheer for him now. Wait. I always cheer for Danny Woodhead. I mean, he was the reason why I was cheering for the Chargers. Dylan knows this. Now he's in the Ravens. Now he's on the enemy. How am I gonna cheer for Danny Woodhead?
Wait, Mitch. He doesn't play for the Patriots anymore?
Well, Jeff Fisher still thinks that Danny Woodhead plays for the Patriots, but you know.
By the way, I'm not that ignorant, everybody. That's just the joke I was going for.
Jeff,
Christian McCaffrey.
Sorry. He played for the Chargers for a while. I don't know if you noticed, and then now he moved on to Baltimore. So there you go.
We gotta update him. I'll tweet him out there. Maybe I'll get Eric Dickerson too. But you know, Danny, good player. I actually really like him. You know, very small, very agile. You know, he plays good. Baltimore is an interesting choice. He's going from Phillip Rivers to Joe Flacco. So, you know, a little bit different setup there.
Probably a better team.
Probably, yeah, a better team. Chargers would be a good team if everybody stayed freaking healthy. But in this situation,
that's never going to happen. It's never again.
No, since 2007, it just continues to happen. I don't know how. You know, there's some good pickups there. I'm not the biggest fan of Baltimore. I always think they're very mediocre and get 9-7 records every year, besides the one Super Bowl in 2012. So these signings are probably, you know, they're decent.
Hey, they've been better than the Cowboys.
No.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, and they lost a couple key guys like Brandon Williams, who I know a lot of people liked.
Where did he go?
I think they just released him. I don't think he's been signed yet. I think
he's a free agent. I don't think he's been signed, but
yeah, he's a free agent. So they lost him. They released Dumerville, and I know I have a couple buddies that are Ravens fans, and I know from them they needed to beef up their secondary. So now you have Jefferson and Eric Weddle, which is
Eric Weddle was phenomenal last year.
And now I think if you can try to find a value cornerback in free agency, like I want to see what like a guy like Claiborne, because I think Claiborne played pretty well.
He's actually rumored to go there.
It really? That was just that's Jeff.
Okay, I actually thought you were speaking off.
No, I didn't even read anything.
Claiborne is like
that was just scheme and fit, man.
You see, I know most experience with Claiborne here, so he's a very shaky cornerback. Some things he does very well, and some things he's very.
He improved a lot last year.
He did, but he also only did play 6 games, so that's.
And the Ravens at 16, I think you can get a decent corner at 16 as well. So that's why I think they'll go. I think obviously they're getting older on their pass rushers. So I think that's what they could use.
Suggs is like 36 or something.
Yeah, and then they released Dumerville, and so they have a lot more needs. But I do like the Jefferson. Still, like
Jefferson's good, man. Jefferson is a pretty underrated player, and I think not only did that talking in hand with Jefferson, he does really improve the secondary of Baltimore. He's kind of a more in box safety. He's really good. He's a really good tackler. I think he was one of the top tacklers in the NFL, especially for safeties. But when you go to Arizona, I mean, we didn't even talk about how Arizona lost a bunch of guys.
Yeah,
they re-signed Chandler Jones. They lost Calais Campbell and Tony Jefferson, and I think that's just on the surface. I don't really know. I know I think they signed Antoine Bethea to replace Jefferson.
Because they've had him before.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think the Cardinals are a team that's slowly on the decline. I mean, I wish the best for Larry Fitzgerald, but I don't see how Carson Palmer is going to carry that team. David Johnson's a phenomenal player, but it seems like they're getting worse and worse since they went to that NFC Championship.
Well, it's weird because, like we talked about it last year, they had the potential to be a playoff team or even higher with that defense. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, Carson Palmer, I guess, just kind of showed up, made him 6-9-1 was the record last year?
Yeah.
So they're gonna be very disappointing very soon.
Yeah, and just going back, like still again, I look at some of these numbers and it's pretty wild. 4 years, 36 mil for Jefferson. But looking at it, it's funny. And I just want to throw it out there. Do you know what the average salary in the NFL is?
Million? 2 million?
Yeah, $1.5 million. Yeah, right in the middle. $1.5 million, which is crazy when you see all the numbers on the first day of free agency, and then you're like, well, 50 players average. Okay, well, it's like
there's a lot of Brandon Boldens out there, so
For sure, yeah. What? White and Lewis get paid probably like $1 million each, less.
Well, I think Malcolm Butler was actually making less than $1 million, which leads us into the Patriots. Christine wants me to talk about the Patriots, so we're going to talk about the Patriots. Hell, let's do it. All right, so they started off free agency. A lot of question marks for the Patriots because, Donta Hightower, is he going to be back? Is he going to be gone? Malcolm Butler, is he going to be back? Well, they did get that first-round tender on him, which means if a team wants to sign him, they have to sign him, and then they have to give them a first-round pick. So if you don't know what that means, then the Patriots would get it first if they lose Butler. So then are they going to re-sign Logan Ryan? Who knows? Are they going to re-sign Duron Harmon? Who knows? Like at the beginning of free agency, what is going to go on? Martellus Bennett, LeGarrette Blount, so many free agents on this championship team. So now the Patriots, what do? Yesterday, or a couple days ago, they signed James Devlin back, one of the better fullbacks in the league. He's back with the Patriots. Then they have Dwayne Allen, who's
interesting.
Dwayne Allen, very good trade from my perspective. It's the same trade exactly that they did for Martellus Bennett. He will make approximately $4 million less than Martellus Bennett this season. And the problem with Bennett was great, and he was awesome filling in for Gronk, and they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl without him, don't get me wrong. But with Allen there, he is basically the same player. I mean, he might be a little bit less talented.
He's a little less dynamic, but
a little bit less talented receiving wise, but we don't really know because Martellus Bennett was hurt like the whole season. He had like a really bad ankle and it kind of slowed him down. So basically the same there as Dwayne Allen, who's been a really good, receiving threat in the red zone. I think he had 8 touchdowns one year, 6 touchdowns last year. So he's good in that department. He's also a very good blocker, which is what Martellus Bennett offered the team. And he just fits really well into the system. He's very, complimentary to Rob Gronkowski. Hopefully Gronk plays the whole season next year, and that would be a very good duo there. He was signed to be the Colts' #1 tight end until, last season when it didn't really work out. I guess the GM wanted to get rid of the contract. Patriots were able to do that, and they signed up Dwayne Allen for the team. I like the trade. And again, they only gave up a 4th, and they got a 6th back with Allen. Then they went on, they signed Stephon Gilmore, which I really didn't expect.
That's a banger right there.
That came out of nowhere. I mean, that was this morning. I saw like my phone blow up. Stephon Gilmore signed with the Patriots. I'm like, holy crap. Okay, I know Stephon Gilmore quite well. He played for the Bills. So the guy is supremely talented. He has great height. He has great length. He's a very physical cornerback. He plays a lot of man coverage, especially with the Bills the last couple of years. And that's definitely what the Patriots try to do more often than not. And he's fast. Like, he has really good measurables. But the thing is with him, he was a little inconsistent last season, which is the reason why I think, he might have gotten even a bigger contract if he played as well as he did 2 years ago last year. Yeah. The scheme that he was in with Rex Ryan last year was really bad for him, which is, I think, the reason why he didn't get paid so much. But he comes into New England, and there's nobody better at using defensive backs than Bill Belichick. He'll find a way to use him really well. I think he'll probably be a borderline Pro Bowler next year. And they signed him to a $14 million annual contract, which is huge. But I think it's definitely worth it. In this day and age in the NFL, you need corners. You need corners to cover. We saw, Atlanta, if it weren't for Butler and Ryan, the Patriots wouldn't have won the Super Bowl. Even though they did give up 28 points, and their third and fourth quarter defense was the reason why, in my opinion, with Tom Brady's heroics, that they won that game. So bringing in Gilmore, likely to replace Ryan. Ryan will probably be off. Pittsburgh maybe. I'm hearing it was maybe Cincinnati, but I think they're out because they signed Kirkpatrick, which I think is a good signing for them. He played well. And who was the other team? Tennessee, I think, was also in the market for Logan Ryan. But Logan Ryan played a lot of slot corner for the Patriots last year. Gilmore will play outside. He is bigger. Probably take the place of Eric Rowe, and then it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Rowe. Probably fill into the fourth corner, and rather Cyrus Jones, if he plays, if he matches his potential, will be the slot corner, or Justin Coleman, or they'll draft somebody. So they have a lot of versatility. But another move that I think is overlooked because of the Gilmore thing is re-signing both Daron Harmon and Alan Branch. We talked a lot about Alan Branch specifically in the playoffs, how impactful he was to the Patriots team. He was, one of the biggest reasons why they were top 3 against the run last season. He got a nice contract. He is getting up there in age, but he's going to play the rest of his career likely in New England, and he's going to help them try and win another Super Bowl. And then for Daron Harmon, he was really looked at in the free agency pretty hard by a number of teams. He was likely going to get paid. And in my opinion, I didn't expect him to come back because I thought he'd get paid like a number 1. But he's like their number 2, number 3 guy. And he's been really, really good for the Patriots in coverage. So I'm really happy with what the Patriots have done so far. I hope that we can get something done with Brandin Cooks that doesn't involve, which will lead us into the Brandin Cooks situation, that doesn't involve Malcolm Butler, if that's possible. I hope that happens.
Hard decision for both.
Butler, again, if we do lose him, we'll get a first-round pick likely. So that's interesting because he does have to sign with the Patriots with the tender in order to trade him, if they were going to trade him. But I've heard every account from the Patriots is that they don't want to trade him. What they want to do is they want to sign him long-term. And if they can't sign him long-term, then they'll potentially trade him. But if I was Malcolm Butler, guys, I would kind of be a little bit mad because they did give the money to Gilmore. But Malcolm Butler has been very grateful for the Patriots. He did get the only chance possible to play for the Patriots, and he made the most of it. He's been one of the best corners the last 2 years in the NFL, at least in the top 10, in my opinion. And to match Butler and Gilmore together would give you arguably the best 1-2 combo at corner. I would still say Denver's corners are better probably, but the Patriots safeties are great as well. So it would be, 1-2 at the secondary. And that's one of the only teams that has kind of been, in the Patriots' face in terms of the AFC the last couple of years. The Broncos have given the Patriots problems defensively. So they see how that's happened. They see how the league's evolving on defense. Patriots definitely going the same route. And I've also heard that Hightower is probably going to come back. So it's interesting to see. I definitely hope we get Hightower back. He's absolutely huge for the defense. And I think he will be back because he is the leader of the defense. So that's pretty much it for the Patriots. You guys have any comments on the Brandin Cooks trade and potentially, Stephon Gilmore, any other things on the Patriots?
For Cooks, I think he's a good receiver. I think he's really good. I've had a lot of questions as to why the Patriots would want him.
Yeah, same here.
Question mark? Because they have a lot of talent at receiver already. Like and then the trade for him for Butler, I think that's a loss for the Patriots.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick towards the Patriots might not want to take that deal. But Stephon Gilmore, holy shit! I don't know how these Patriots do it every single year, but they get at least one player. I'm like, how? Stephon Gilmore, I've said for years, and I haven't really expressed it on the channel, but I think he's absolutely fantastic. And now he's going to an organization that's going to care about him because the Bills obviously don't care about good players. And you've got a team, and you got him, you've got Butler, 1-2 combo, like Mitch said, that's going to be deadly. So Stephon Gilmore, he has a lot of talents, a lot of qualities. I think he's one of the best cornerbacks, and I think this is a top 5 free agent signing this year. Even with some other players that are about to, make their decisions, I think this is an absolutely fantastic pick. So Patriots, I don't know how the fuck you do it. I guess continue to do how you do it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the rich get richer. It's like you don't lose anything on your offensive side. Obviously,
No.
Bennett's going to –
Bennett Allen is pretty close to a wash. I mean,
Gronk's going to be healthy next year, right? So it's like –
yeah, exactly.
And then you're just adding –
Can I just mention about Gronk? I did not expect this guy to be working out so soon. He was working out like a week after the Super Bowl. I'm like, holy crap, dude. How are you back this fast? He's had 3 back surgeries. He's already ready to go. I'm like, wow, he's
a freak of nature, man.
This guy's impressive. Like JJ Watt and him both.
It's all that Grey Goose vodka at the clubs, right?
Yeah, maybe. Well, did you see that video where the kids at the elementary school made him chug a water bottle?
Oh, yeah. Great role model. Great role model. No, but like we were saying, though, Patriots, I think Belichick is huge part of it, but they must have I want to know who's their secret money finance guy that just makes the numbers go, that they pay these guys perfectly, that they always have cap space.
Well, see, it used
they gotta have someone in the office that is just almost like Moneyball.
Well, it used to be Bob Quinn, who's now the Lions GM, which we'll get to the Lions in a bit, and I think they've been doing pretty well. They do have a GM that is beside Belichick, but I don't know who the small man in the organization is, the under guy, They do have Nick Caserio, who is the co-GM basically, but I don't know who the other guy is that deals with the small things in the contracts. That's an interesting question, but the Patriots always seem to figure that out.
They're probably just interns from Harvard. For sure.
Probably just
right?
guys living up $5 a day.
Yeah, exactly. Needs to get through college, so he's just making the numbers for a bunch of football dudes.
Yeah. So the Patriots' next priorities: Donta Hightower. That's obviously next. There has been a lot of questions about Jimmy Garoppolo. Do we want to get to that next, or we want to wait till Dylan's back?
Yeah, we can get to it. So, I guess we should talk about the Osweiler thing first before we get into anything, right? Because that's the rumor is that's trying to build towards.
Yeah. Well, I think we should talk about that in just a little bit because that's a lot to go over. So, going back to the Brandin Cooks thing, for Brandin Cooks, I mean, I don't really understand what happened with him in New Orleans. There was an incident in the middle of the season where he complained that he didn't get a target even though they won the game. The thing with Brandin Cooks last year that I didn't really understand was that he was getting one game he would have 11 targets, one game he would have 2. I was I don't understand what's happening. He still ended up with 1,200 yards or something like that. He still had a really good season, and I think he would be absolutely phenomenal in the Patriot system. He's quick. He's a great route runner. Belichick loves the guy. Even back in his rookie season in the preseason, he just was gushing over how good he was. So I definitely, and Adam Schefter still says that they're the top team that could get him. But I'm not sure what to think of the Malcolm Butler trade things because one side it could be a rumor. One side, I could see how Malcolm Butler would be, you know, pissed off a little bit about Gilmore getting the money and not him. So
this would only help the Saints, in my opinion. Like this.
Either way, like I don't think if the Patriots, I'm going to say it right now, I don't think if the Patriots get Brandin Cooks that Malcolm Butler will be involved. I think it will be something different. I don't think Malcolm Butler will be involved. I think they actually value Malcolm Butler more. Because he is a corner.
The Patriots, I don't think, would accept the trade. Because, like, I don't understand why Malcolm Butler.
Unless Malcolm Butler holds out.
That's the only reason it's going to happen. Because, like, Malcolm Butler is extremely talented. I don't see Belichick or anybody in the front office going, man, we got to get rid of him in order to get Brandin Cooks. I don't see how that works for him.
And you know, there's the rumor with the third. I still think that 32nd pick could still hold up when this is all said and done. You know, there's that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that the trade, because that the original trade is New England offered the first round pick, but they wanted Cooks and a 4th or a 5th round pick back.
Yeah.
So technically, it wasn't a first round pick because of they're getting another pick back. But I think it could hold up that first if they wanted to pull the trigger on that. That I think come near draft time, I think that would be enough to get Cooks.
Because, Adam, it's like right now, it's like, okay, Brandin Cooks is going to go somewhere. It's just a matter of if it's the Patriots or the Titans. That's literally like what I'm hearing. Brandin Cooks is not going to go, like he's going to go somewhere at the end of the day. It's going to be Patriots or Titans. That's going to be what it's going to be.
I hope it would be a better situation for both teams. I think the Patriots would like to have Cooks. I just think if they're going to give up Butler, I think that's a lose situation.
Well, yeah, but we're assuming they won't. I think the Malcolm Butler things are just kind of people throwing out rumors that aren't necessarily true. Considering what the Patriots are saying about Butler, that they want to sign him, it would be, you know, interesting if they did trade him.
And I think what we'll see is like we saw with a lot of, like, you know, with Alshon Jeffrey, right? The rumors were that he was going to get big time money, and then when it all said and done, you know, it starts here and then it gets more to here. So I think that's what the Saints saying they want a mid first round pick. It's not going to happen. I think at the end of the day they'll settle for a 20 to 30, maybe with a couple extra picks in the 5th round. I think that would be good enough to get it done, because if you're New Orleans, you need defense, you need players in that defense fast, and I think in those maybe later rounds,
for sure,
or late first, you'll be able to get an impact player. It's not the best draft that we've seen, but there's still some impact defensive players, especially in the secondary, that you'll be able to get at that 32nd spot.
I actually like what the Saints have done. They made a couple moves. They signed Ted Ginn, which is interesting because he could potentially be the guy that replaces Brandin Cooks. They also signed another Panther, AJ Klein, who's a solid cover linebacker. He replaced Luke Kuechly as the middle linebacker for the Panthers there. He's a pretty decent guy. I mean, that's a really stacked linebacker core for the Panthers, and he was able to play there pretty consistently. They also signed Larry Warford, who was like a pretty good guard. He goes to the Saints, helps out not only the run game, but the passing game with Drew Brees. And they re-signed Nick Fairley, which I thought was a good move. Nick Fairley's a good pass rusher from the interior. I think the Saints are a team to look out for next year. Any team with Drew Brees is definitely, you know, you have to look out for them. But what I saw last year with the Saints is they started off really poorly in terms of defensively, but as the weeks went on and the season wore on, they got better defensively. So I think if they add a couple players, they get some injured players back, they could be a team that does compete in the NFC South. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's continue on with the Brock Osweiler trade, because this is gonna lead into a crazy theory of mine that I don't think anyone will buy, but we'll see what happens. So the Texans trade Brock Osweiler and a 2018 second round pick to the Cleveland Browns for, I think it was
a fourth round and basically money.
So the Texans were saying, you know, we don't want this guy. His contract is too big. Browns, you have a lot of salary cap. There is no way. You got money to burn. We're going to give you Brock Osweiler. You can do whatever you want with him. You can cut him. You can start him, whatever you want. We're going to give you a second so that you do it. And I think it's a good move for both sides because for the Browns, they get a second-round pick and they get, they fill some of their cap void that might not have been filled regardless. I don't think they're going to be able to sign this many players that they fill up all their salary cap. I think they had like first or second or third most amount of cap. Like they were right up there with the most free amount of money. Brock Osweiler could rather play for them for a bit. They could even cut him, which is what the rumor is. Or, and they have that second, and they have a ton of picks. I mean, they have 2 firsts this year. I think like 3 seconds next year or something like that. 2 seconds this year. A number of third-round picks. So they have a lot of flexibility to do a lot of things. And one of those things, I know a lot of people have been talking about this, includes trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, which, again, to the Patriots. The Patriots seem to be the center of a lot of these discussions. But hear me out on this. What if this crazy theory happened? What if there was the 3-way trade that involved the Saints, the Browns, and the Patriots? The Saints traded Cooks to the Patriots with some of the Browns picks. The Saints got some picks as well, and the Browns got Jimmy Garoppolo.
That'd be fucking insane. Like that would literally be the craziest 3 trade proposal.
Then the NFL would turn into the NBA.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It would be monstrous. I don't think I've ever seen a trade like this happen. Like Houston just went, we have the shitty quarterback.
I know, like he's the worst player. And we were actually talking about that. We were like, Brock Osweiler is arguably the worst player in the league.
He's awful. Well, by the way, we might have a top 10 list of that. He's the worst. And so for a team to go, hey, you can have Brock Osweiler if you take his money, and we'll throw in a second pick for nothing. Second-round pick for nothing. Jesus. Like, by the way, Cleveland has $108 million in cap space, so they are free to do whatever they want to as they please. I've heard rumors that they're either going to release him or they'll let him play for 1 season. They'll release RG3, and they'll draft somebody in the QB this year. I was talking about it in the chat. No quarterback this year deserves to be the number 1 pick. However, there are some people later on in the draft. What is it? Like they got 20-something, right, for the Browns, the next pick? Or is it?
Well, yeah, no, it's 12th. But I don't think they'll take a quarterback there. They might, but I still think they might go for a playmaker or a defensive player there. But still, the first pick of the second round, that's when you always see the other quarterbacks. Like if they're all of them might be there. Like the way I'm looking at it, I'm still trying to wrap my head around like where these quarterbacks are going to get drafted in the first round.
Well, we're talking about the only person that I think possibly is going to be drafted in the first round for a quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Other than that, I think Mitch Trubisky dropped off in quality after his combine performance. Some of these other players didn't really exactly shine the lights. So for Cleveland, if they're going to do a second-round pick, that's a lot more safer than what they did. Remember a couple years ago, they put was it Justin Gilbert as a cornerback, and that was an absolute disaster. Yeah. And then later on in the same draft, in the first round, they drafted Johnny Manziel, which I still have love for him, but that didn't work out for them. So if they go with the second-round pick, in which they've got 2 or 3 this year, I think it's just 2.
Dylan, give up on Johnny Manziel.
No, I'll never give up on him. So with this decision, he's got everything in no, that's like Salt Bay. You got to go more like this. So
yeah, I was making fun
everything involved. I think Cleveland, this is probably one of the better decisions. Are they still going to be a winning team? Absolutely not. But they've got a bunch of money to be using, and fuck it. If Brock Osweiler does something for 1 season and they can move on from him, it's a pretty good win. And Houston wins from this as well because they're still trying to get Romo, and they obviously don't want a shitty quarterback like Osweiler, which I don't oppose to. I
was kidding when I said this in the Twitter chat, but the Browns are the next dynasty of the NFL. They got so many picks right here. I'm laughing while I say this, but it could be realistic. If they nail these picks, they could be a good team. I know a lot of people are saying that they're They're going to F it up. They're the Browns. They're going to F it up. They suck.
They're the worst at drafting. That's my problem.
How much do you think they regret not taking Carson Wentz, though, now?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like taking –
Well, you never know. What if they could nail the next Dak Prescott? You never know.
No, but you never know. But you kind of know what you kind of have in Wentz, right? It would only be like that 12th round pick they'd have to give away, and they wouldn't have this year if they took him. No, I'm not saying I like the trade we made, but I heard some people on NFL Network talking about, you know, maybe are they kicking themselves a bit that they could have had Carson Wentz, but they just didn't like him whatsoever, right?
Maybe.
Because imagine if they had Carson Wentz going in with still pretty much all these picks except for 2, right? They would still have all these picks except for 2. They'd have Carson Wentz. They'd have all this money. You know, they bring Kenny Britt in. I think if they look for a quarterback in the last 2 years, even if they went found Dak or something, they'd be further ahead than they are now.
Yeah. So this is crazy, guys. These trades are just insane. I mean, Osweiler, I think most likely what happens, he won't be playing for the Browns. I think he'll probably get cut. Honestly, I don't even know. I did forget to mention the biggest signing of all. Vince Young signs with the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Yeah. I saw this and I was like, so this is the return we're looking for. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Vince Young to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Also, what else do we got to talk about? There's so many deals here.
Let's talk about Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. All right. Where do you want to start?
Well, you got to start with the biggest signing of them all.
All right. Go ahead.
D-Jax going over to Tampa Bay. I really like this move. For Tampa Bay, they got Jameis Winston, a rough quarterback that is kind of inconsistent at times, but in the games he shows out, he's really good. And he's basically had one receiver, Mike Evans. Now he's got Deshaun Jackson, who is incredibly talented. Even though he's gotten older, he's gotten a lot more wiser. And I think this is a great pick. You know, he played well in Washington, of course, with Kirk Cousins. Now he's going to be here with a different style of quarterback. But I think this is a really good signing for Tampa Bay. I think this is probably going to be one of the better free agent picks for them. It's only 2 years as well, so it's not like you're in this for the long run.
Yeah, no, it's actually 3 years, 35. But still, Deshaun still playing at a high level. He helped me win my fantasy league last year in the last 3-4 weeks of the season. Was amazing. He's always one catch away, one big play away from breaking open a game. And I think a quarterback like Winston really will help him out. And then they also added Chris Baker, who hasn't had the best year, but still can play. I think he can help that defensive line beside Gerald McCoy. So I think they had a decent start to free agency.
Yeah. Tampa Bay is a team that I'm looking out for next year. I think Dylan actually predicted them to go to the playoffs last year, which was close. I think that they have a good chance this year. I think Atlanta probably will take a little bit of a step back. Like we said, I think the Saints will be tough, though. In my opinion, I think they'll be in the mix in the NFC South. I do think the Panthers are going to be straight doo-doo. I think they're going to be just absolute trashola. As for Tampa Bay, Deshaun Jackson will definitely help. Because I watched a lot of Tampa Bay last year, and it was Mike Evans. They need something else. Cameron Brate was pretty good for them last year. He should be a decent tight end for them. Deshaun Jackson, though, stretches the field. Mike Evans was absolutely awesome. And their defense was really underrated. So I think with Jameis Winston, a guy that I'm high on, probably higher than you guys, I think he has a ton of talent. He has shown good leadership, and he has a strong arm, which will help that deep ball with Deshaun Jackson. So it'll be interesting to watch Tampa Bay next year. I think they are a team to look out for, and it will be interesting to watch. I just got word that Washington just fired their GM.
Yeah, that was in the works for the last couple of days here.
Oh, was it?
Well, because it's the owner, Snyder. He's just an idiot.
So did they fire him right now? Did he have any opportunity to sign anybody, or did they just fire him before free agency started?
I believe they they were firing him. They fired him today, but they're probably fired him probably.
Wait,
Tuesday.
Before we say anything, Scott McLaughlin was fired because of a relapse related to alcohol. The Washington Post reports. So
yeah,
maybe I guess shit. I guess don't say anything bad.
Like I know a Washington fan, man. He is pissed. He thinks they are like they are throwing it all away. He thinks Kirk Cousins isn't going to get it done. He thinks Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garcon, they're all gone. Like all these players are leaving. Well, he's pissed off. They lost Chris Baker. They didn't sign Brandon Williams and all these big guys that they needed to defend the run, which I do agree with. I think he is a little bit pissed off.
I would have liked their management is absolutely atrocious. Like when I saw they were talking with Kirk Cousins and he wanted to release because they wouldn't sign him a big contract. First off, I understand to a certain degree, but he's also getting paid a shit ton under this tag. But like management has not given him enough time. Like they have not given him enough freedom to get this contract. Like they will not sign him long term. So I don't know. The Washington organization is probably one of the sloppiest right now.
Well, they had a great offense last year, and they lose Garcon, they lose D-Jack. They are left with Jordan Reed and Crowder, who's good, but I think Crowder was helped by having those other receivers around. Like if it's just Crowder,
I think he was the best receiver on their team though.
And who was their first round pick last year? The good receiver that got injured.
Doxton, Josh Doxton.
Doxton. So and then the whole Kirk mess. Like Kirk wanted out of there, but like Snyder's like, no, you're staying type thing. It's really like possessive, weird stuff.
Yeah, it's
Snyder.
weird though.
Snyder's a weird dude, I think.
They didn't sign him and treat him like he's their franchise quarterback. They like waited and waited and waited and waited. Yep. And they franchised him. Like they didn't want to sign him. I don't understand. Like he doesn't get respected for what he did. Like he had a good season last year. It wasn't his fault why they were losing games, guys. Their defense was like 31st against a run.
Oh, for sure.
Their defense was bad. They brought in Josh Norman expecting to fix everything. It didn't happen. I mean, they lost a lot. Like even that one game against Dallas was like what, like 38, like 30 or something like that. Like they're not going to win that game. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, and
Dallas, damn it.
And now look, as an Eagles fan, looking at all these other teams, like Eagles are sneaking under the radar because I actually really liked watching that Washington offense last year play. It'd be interesting to see how they play like this year, but I really like watching Kirk Cousins play. I think he's a really good player, and those weapons they had last year. But you lose two, decent receiving threats, like very better than average receiving threats, and then you lose your nose tackle and Baker. You're not really adding much, and then
they added Terrell McClain from the Cowboys.
Congratulations, you got Terrell McClain. I think that's a very low consolation prize for you.
They also added who's that safety? Swearinger.
Who's been around? Like he's
been okay.
Yeah, he's a hard hitting. He's kind of
one of those. He's kind of one of those stupid players. Like he just seems really dumb, but he's like he hits hard.
Probably why he got stupid if he keeps hitting hard enough.
No, but kind of like who's that safety that used to play for the Redskins? I'm not talking Sean Taylor. The other guy that most recently that just kept on head.
Brandon Merriweather.
Merriweather. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he played for the Patriots.
Like Sean Taylor's
for some reason, he made like 3 Pro Bowls. He was awful. He couldn't tackle anyone. He would just try and kill everybody. Like he would like run head first. He was like terrible, man.
He's like, all right, here we go. I got my head ready for you.
Another move that kind of slipped right under the radar, wide receiver wise, is Robert Woods to the Rams.
He got paid too.
Yeah, we talked about the Rams a little bit, but 5 years, $39 million. Watching the Bills a lot. I mean, again with the Patriots division rival thing. Robert Woods has always been a thorn in the Patriots side. I think they were interested in him, but he ultimately got like too much. He caught a lot of money. Of course, another guy that gets overpaid, but that's the market nowadays. And he's a good receiver. I don't think he's a number 1. I think he's a good number 2. But he almost never drops the ball. He's a pretty good route runner. He's a smart player. He's quiet. He's not a diva. I think he'll do well in LA. Probably being their number 1 receiver next year. I mean, they do have Tavon, who is not like the best, but he's a slot guy.
I will say this: if Goff can throw the freaking ball,
yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Because like even Kenny Britt didn't get paid off going to the Browns. He didn't get paid off of this season. He got paid of the season with just like a Chase Keenum or whoever they threw in at quarterback, and he looked good, right? He had kind of a rebirth there. But like, yeah,
I would say this: Kenny Britt to me, like Kenny Britt to me. I said this to you, man. He looked soft. He looked out of it. He didn't want anything to do with that team. I don't know if it was his effort or if he's just done, but. I do appreciate and I like what the Browns have been doing, but Kenny Britt is one move that I wasn't a huge fan of.
It was because I thought the Eagles were going to sign him, and after seeing what he got paid, I am glad they didn't because I couldn't have handled them signing him for that price. I liked him.
Would you rather have had Kenny Britt or Torrey Smith?
At what? Torrey Smith is only $5 million. What's Kenny Britt's at like 11 or something, right?
Oh, it's 4 year, $32.5 million. So that's about $8.
That's a long term. I don't know. Well, like we said, I think Kenny Britt is a step above. Blanking. Who we were just talking about?
Torrey Smith.
It's been a long day. Torrey Smith. Yeah,
I know people don't like him, but like. In Baltimore, he was quite good. It's just the threat that he was.
But the thing with Kenny Britt is he only had like one bad season last season, but had a good season before. Torrey Smith's been kind of insignificant for the last like 2-3 years since he was traded, which has hurt his stock as well.
Let's also not forget the fact that Kenny Britt is coming off his first career 1,000-yard season, so he wasn't terrible. He just didn't do great, like as we're seeing it. Like stat-wise, he was okay.
Okay, so we haven't talked about two quarterbacks yet. One getting released from the Bears and one getting signed by the Bears. Jay Cutler got released. Mike Glennon got signed. How do we feel about that? Let's start with Jay Cutler, guys. I know we want to get this out of the way.
I never understood the reason the Bears kept him for 7 fucking years. I never understood this. Jay Cutler is the most trash quarterback there is. And there's people that have come and gone since Jay Cutler has been in the league, and I think he's almost arguably worse than them. Consistently. But first off, the NFC North is going to be hurting because they were getting a lot of free touchdowns off of him. But on top of that, Jay Cutler he doesn't – I don't know if he plays football, if he plays freaking underwater basketball. I don't know what sport he's actually playing because he's absolute garbage. So for this move, I think it's good they released Jay Cutler because he's dead weight. And he provides absolutely nothing, especially since they had quarterbacks come and go this season or last season that were doing a lot better, and they were either injured or the talent wasn't there. And then you got Mike Glennon, who I think is a tad bit better than Cutler, but I don't see him as a big prospect. I predicted in one of these chats on Instagram, I was like, Bears are going to probably win 4 or 5 games, which is what they've been doing the last couple seasons anyways. So is it a step up? I guess. But it's a 3-year, $45 million contract, which is ridiculous. And Glennon's not the worst quarterback in the world, but he's probably in like 24th or 25th in rankings of starting quarterbacks this year. So I guess they went to a step up.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference between these guys is what I've heard is that Glennon is not going to turn the ball over and be reckless. Like Glennon has a good arm. From what I've seen, he's big. He's like 6'7". He's pretty much the same sort of prospect as Cutler, except his name isn't Jay Cutler. And
but he doesn't have the same arm as Cutler.
Well, Cutler had a really reckless arm, like.
But I think it was more his mind. I think it was more his mind. I think he thought he could make those throws.
Yeah, because he has
and like he could make them, but the other 50% of the time it gets picked off, and he looks
That's what everybody was obsessed with Cutler was he had an amazing arm. He could throw the ball, across the field. Yeah, just good athlete.
Like, no.
Well, my theory is he must have been like a great practice player. You know what I mean? That people like, I know it doesn't mean much, but like in Chicago to stay there for that long,
he had to be
producing. Something must have been like up with that team, or he was just like he looked like Joe Montana, Tom Brady in every Super Bowl, every single practice, and then just shat the bed in the game.
And Glennon's making $14 million a year, guys.
That's ridiculous amount of money. That if you want to talk about overpricing for a quarterback like Mike Glennon's potential, that's overpricing. That is absolutely ridiculous.
And I heard that they don't even believe in him as like the future guy.
No, he's just a bridge. He's like a bridge because they don't like the quarterbacks in the draft, so they needed a guy that helps them build. So now with this, and they lost Jeffrey, right? So they have no receiving. Kevin White has been non-existent. He got injured right away. They had high hopes.
Who's that
for
other
him.
guy? The other guy's not bad, but
Cameron Meredith is pretty good.
Yeah. Cameron Meredith.
So
but now it's interesting at that third pick. They need help all around. Like, do they trade down and get do they go for one of those big receivers now, like a Mike Williams?
For big talent. I think somebody like Mike Williams could be a big potential for Chicago. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there, but
no, I agree. Just because now they, I thought they would go to the defense, but now it's like I don't know if they have much on offense. Like I think Howard's going to be a very good player.
I did just hear that they got Marcus Wheaton.
They got Marcus Wheaton.
Marcus Wheaton from the Steelers is going to the Bears.
Whoa, that's pretty big actually, because he was
not really.
He was a good player. He just got in a lot of trouble.
No, that's freaking Martavius Bryant, bro. You're thinking of the wrong guy.
Damn it!
If it was Martavius Bryant, I would have said, "Whoa, Martavius Bryant."
I was thinking. I was like, "Whoa, Wheaton was a decent 3 receiver."
Wheaton's not terrible, but I mean, he's not going to be like
he's better than Sammy Coates.
Player. He's like a 3 in terms of these receiver depths.
He was like, if you need, like, if Pittsburgh had a good matchup and you needed to pick up, like you had a couple guys on buys that you needed to pick up, you pick up Wheaton and just hopefully he'd just have that one game where he gets like 6 catches, but then the rest are just like donuts on the board.
Zero.
Yeah, zeros. It's like, shit, I had a hunch. They were playing the Chargers.
Let's get to another team because we have Charles in here who I don't know, man. He said he's drinking. I don't know. He's at work. He's stressed out because the Raiders aren't doing anything. They
haven't made a single move.
What is wrong with the Raiders right now? I mean, they did a lot of stuff in the free agency last year. I understand that. They were a good team last year. They're a few pieces away from making it far. Now it looks like they've let all the top corners slip out through their fingers unless they make a run at maybe Logan Ryan or maybe even Malcolm Butler. Who knows? But, They've let those guys, Kirkpatrick, Gilmore, Bouye, all slip through their fingers. They haven't got one of the big interior guys that they need as well. And he's saying that they need to get like a Poe or somebody like that, even a Donta Hightower to make a run at him. They need to get one of those guys. But it seems like the Raiders are just content with where they're at, and they're going to take it to the draft, maybe add a couple small moves. I think this is a big mistake.
It's a huge mistake because we were talking about this last season. Their offense is so great and they got dynamic players, but when it came to their defense, that's how they lost a lot of their games up until Carr's injury. Like they were not – like we were talking about who's going to contend for the Patriots in the AFC, and you got like, oh, Kansas City's there. They really need a better quarterback, which we'll probably get to. You got a couple of other teams, but the Raiders were one we were talking about. But with their defense, they weren't going to be able to contend as much as other teams. So I think this is a huge mistake. Unless that they do something important in the draft, I think this might be one of the bigger losses for any team in the free agency.
Yeah, and they might just be playing it smart, though, because they have, they have 40 million. Sorry, I just got an echo. Wait, is that me?
That's Dylan.
What? I got
the echo man. All right.
No, but they have 40 million in cap, which is decent. And obviously, like, who said that? Rick Badboy said that they're going to have to pay a lot of their young players.
Yeah.
I think
they have to pay Amari Cooper.
Yeah, and the first day of free agency is like the big money, but there's always so much depth in free agency that you're going to be able to get some plug and play guys that fit your system that you're going to get for cheap that could help your team next year. And when you're a team like the Raiders that are only a couple pieces away, you have your offense, but if you can just tinker that defense a bit.
I think though, Adam, they're a couple big pieces away. I don't think they're a couple small pieces away.
No, not small pieces. Not small pieces. Like you got to build through the draft, but I don't think they need to go out there and do something drastic because I've seen it firsthand with Nnamdi Asomugha paying a guy big money and it turns out just thrown back in your face. So maybe they're just playing safe that fact. I still don't. Who knows?
Well, I think it more has to do with what Bad Boy said. There is like they need to pay Carr, they need to pay Cooper, they need to pay Khalil Mack, they need to pay a lot of guys a lot of money. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And they spent a lot of money last year. So that's also a thing. But I would have, like, if I was a Raiders fan, my number one priority would have been getting, one of those top corners. But otherwise, I think they might try and get, a plug-and-play guy in the middle of their defense, like a nose tackle or whatever. Maybe maybe they'll draft a corner. I'm not sure, but they'll try and improve the defense probably throughout the draft and maybe a couple free agents here and there. But they're not going to get anyone big, which is what I was hoping to see from the Raiders. So we discussed the Raiders. We discussed the quarterback situation. Do we want to get to the man in the big D? Do we want to get to the man in the big D?
Let's go ahead, Dylan.
Dylan, who am I talking about, bro?
I'm talking about Mr. Number 9, Tony Romo. This is more of an emotional situation for me because, growing up with this guy for a long time, from 06 to now, like as my child quarterback, this has been the guy, minus obviously Dak last year. So basically, he posted a video today thanking the fans, all the support, all of Dallas. He's all but gone. There was reports he was going to get released. Now there's reports saying he's going to get traded. I still think there's only 3 teams that are possible for Tony Romo, and that's Denver, Houston, and a wild card is Kansas City. I like the fit in Kansas City. I just don't think they're going to be able to get him because I think Alex Smith is quite overrated, even though he's a system quarterback. But both teams in Denver and Houston have good players and good talent where they're just basically one quarterback away from making a good run in the playoffs and possibly a Super Bowl. Mitch talked about a lot that their defense in Houston is absolutely stacked, and that's one of the most underrated things about them. And they've got good receivers. They got Will Fuller. They got DeAndre Hopkins. They just couldn't have a quarterback that could throw because Osweiler was trash. In the same boat as Bortles. Like, they just could not throw to their receivers. So Romo, it's not really a question of what he can do on the field because he's quite, obviously the last couple of years he's proven himself as to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's just his health. And I don't exactly know. 37 years old, 10 million surgeries. Been out for the last 2 years, basically. It's kind of hard for me to see this happen as a fan and knowing him for so long. I wish him the best, obviously, but I just don't know what the situation is. I'm going to predict. My prediction is he's going to Houston. I think Denver would be a better fit, and John Elway's more of the I want to win right now thing. But with Osweiler just going to Cleveland, I think that's their ultimate goal is to get him there. If they trade him, I don't expect him more than a 5th-round pick. Like, I expect a couple of small things to get there, but obviously Dallas wants to just kind of get some salary cap space, remove the dead weight. Unfortunately, that's what they're going to call it as, and let it go because he's not released at this point. So we'll see how it goes, but that's my pick there.
Yeah, no, I feel for you. I went through the same similar situation to McNabb. Like the reason why I liked the Eagles was the day McNabb got drafted there. It was a huge college football, 98, Syracuse. So then I followed McNabb, but I stayed an Eagles fan. But it was tough. But at least Romo didn't go. Well, hopefully he doesn't go to. He's obviously not going to the NFC East, right? McNabb went to the Redskins, didn't do well, so it was not that bad, right? But still, yeah, it's always tough to see your idol, your favorite player move teams. So I feel for you, man.
Yeah.
Hey, it's time heals, man. Time heals.
Yeah. Oh, and at least the good thing with Dallas situation is they've got a backup quarterback in Dak who's going to be there for the future in the long run. It's just I've grown up with Romo through extremely low lows and extremely highs. So, it's depressing. It's my childhood quarterback. We can't all have Tom Brady's in our childhood.
No, I know, right?
Who has that? Who's that spoiled that they have Tom Brady?
Who got to 3 Super Bowls by the age of 8?
No biggie, bro. No biggie, bro. I do want to discuss a couple things.
Okay.
All right. So we got in the chat here. Bodo, Dylan, if you had a kid, would you name your kid Romo?
No.
Serious question.
No.
Okay. Next, Alex Smith is overrated. Yes, I think he is. Okay. I want to say this. For the Kansas City Chiefs, who I have been a supporter of, I mean, in terms of wanting to see them do things in the playoffs, I've been when they don't play the Patriots, of course, but I've been wanting to see the Chiefs do something in the playoffs, and to watch Alex Smith continuously just poop all over himself. I mean, the guy is not going to take you to where you want to go. You have a guy in Tony Romo who's arguably, if Tony Romo, guys, won a Super Bowl, Tony Romo could be in the Hall of Fame because, of course, they say Super Bowls get you in the Hall of Fame, right? So if he won a Super Bowl, you could be saying it's basically Donovan McNabb with a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So,
and that's what's held Donovan McNabb out, because his numbers are decent. Our Hall of Fame numbers, regular season numbers, right? So the same with Romo, very similar situations.
He's a great regular season quarterback. It just comes down to whether it gets the job done. But I think Alex Smith is the most mediocre quarterback.
Oh man, that's why I'm pissed off that, like, even though I would rather not see Kansas City with Tony Romo, I'm pissed off at like them not having the balls to go out there and be like, Alex Smith isn't our guy. He's not going to win us the Super Bowl. We have this window now that we're losing, Don Terry Poe, and we lost Jamal Charles. We wasted Jamal Charles years here. We're not going to go and get Tony Romo that could potentially help us get to the AFC Championship, get to the Super Bowl. Kind of would piss me off if I was a Chiefs fan. As for the Texans and the Broncos, man, like, even take the chance. I made a video on this. Take the chance on Tony Romo was the exact title. What is the worst that could happen? You're not going to spend a ton of money on the guy. I mean, nobody really wants him that badly. It's like the same situation as Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles right now at the running back position. You're not going to spend that much money. What's going to happen? You're going to end up starting, your Trevor Siemians, your Paxton Lynch's. You're going to end up starting your Brock Osweilers anyways if he doesn't pan out. So my point is, like, I don't really see the downside of trying to take a chance. Even if the guy does get injured, even if the guy is finished, whatever, at least you took the chance. You have a team in Houston, #1 defense in the league last year, statistically. You add Tony Romo, you have Lamar Miller, you have DeAndre Hopkins. That's a pretty good team. That's an AFC Championship caliber team. It looks like Pittsburgh's going to fall. It looks like Oakland is staying about the same. So Houston would definitely be elevated to that, probably the second favorite in the AFC if they did get a Tony Romo. As for Denver, it's the same thing. I mean, they're right there with the Patriots. They've proven that, especially in Denver, it's difficult for the Patriots to beat them there. You have Romo there. You have a great defense that's still there. You maybe improve the defensive line a little bit in the draft. You have a great team there, and you could make a run. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, guys?
Well, and I was thinking about this because, like, at worst, you're going to waste probably 2 years of this time. Romo's 37. He's not 24. He's 37. If you're Houston, I still think Tom Savage is quite underrated. So you've still got him to develop. But if you're in Denver, this is why I like it more in Denver, is you've got somebody like Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch, who, to their own accounts, have not done anything in their time in Denver. But if you groom with somebody that's a Tony Romo, who has groomed somebody like Dak Prescott, you can help them at least be better than they are already. So, and John Elway's perspective of, I want to win now. That's why he got Peyton Manning in the first place. He had like 2 or 3 years left in him.
Yep. And how many years left, Dylan, do you have Aqib Talib as top 2 corner? How many years do you have Chris Harris? How many years do you have Von Miller at elite Von Miller? How many years do you have these players? How many years do you have Demaryius Thomas? How many years you got all these guys in the right places?
Yeah, because that team's ready to win. We just saw them win the championship, not this season, but the season before.
Yeah. And it wasn't because of their quarterback play. It was just their quarterback play was just good enough.
Yeah, it's like one of those memes that's like, oh, well, when you get an A+, but you didn't do anything on the presentation. That's basically how it goes for the quarterback situation in Denver. Like, they need somebody to provide them some kind of spark because their defense is one of the best in the game. We've seen it for the last 2 or 3 years. And their offense with receivers and weapons is quite good. So if Tony Romo goes somewhere, I think he's going to win because, I mean, obviously it's not going to be somewhere shitty like, I don't know, like Cleveland or San Francisco. He's going to be doing something positive for them. So at least they're making the playoffs.
Bodo says he likes Savage. I don't mind Savage. I think he has some talent. But is Bill Belichick in the playoffs going to be scared because Tom Savage is coming to Gillette?
No, and that's the thing. I like Tom Savage, but I don't expect him to win.
I don't mind him either. I just think he has had enough chances, in a way. He has at least started. I don't know the exact number, but I'm saying 10 NFL games.
Close. I think I would probably 6.
Yeah, but I guess he's been in more.
It just, there's times where you're like, I don't know if this is the guy, and then other times there's okay, there's some room for potential. So you're kind of for me, he's kind of tiptoeing around himself at this point. We'll see. But Tony Romo, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Tony Romo, man, that guy. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well. I've always been a Tony Romo fan. I've always been a Tony Romo defender. So I want to see where he goes. Any other things? Of course, Zeitler and the Browns beefed up their offensive line.
Yeah, they did. I was impressed with that.
That was good. Like I said earlier, if you're going to overpay for offensive line.
Yes, because that'll be the best benefit for you. Just ask the Dallas Cowboys, who, by the way, lost one of their offensive linemen, Ronald Leary, to the Denver Broncos.
He didn't start last year, though, did he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, I didn't.
A sneaky signing for the Eagles. I'm not sure the dollar amount, but they got Chance Warmack, who is a decent starting guard in the NFL. Maybe he's not top 15, but he's kind of in the middle there because they have they got Brandon Brooks from Houston last year, and now I think Alan Barbary is on his way out, I think. So then they get that as a guard. So I don't know. I like that pick for the Eagles as well.
I left 2 or 3 times in here. Did you guys talk about Micah Hyde going to the Bills?
No, we didn't. I did want to talk about that, though, because that's a good pickup. I think that the Packers are another team that never spends in free agency. This just frustrates the hell out of me. You got Aaron freaking Rodgers on your team. Aaron freaking Rodgers. And you're not even going to spend any money. You re-signed Nick Perry, who basically didn't play enough last year. He was like a rotational pass rusher. Sure, he had 10 sacks. But you need to play the guy more. You have freaking old man Julius Peppers, who's in the free agency right now. He played more than Nick Perry last year, which I don't know why. But you have Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to spend on a running back. You're not going to spend on – they lost a couple offensive linemen already. They lost Micah Hyde. All they did today was re-sign Nick Perry. They're weak. They're terrible in the secondary. They cut Sam Shields, who was their best corner for the last 10 years.
We've talked about how their defense was the worst thing about them, and that's the reason they lost that NFC Championship game.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't care if it came down to whether the offense got it done. It's their defense could not hold up to a team.
And they're probably going to lose. I'm hearing they're probably going to lose Jared Cook, too. They're going backwards.
Well, what I don't get, too, is there always teams that they're a team that they could use to take a chance on an average free agent corner. They never do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to win with Randall, and they had that one good season maybe 2 years ago where that combo of who's the other guy, number 20, the other young corner that they use. It's Randall and I forgot his name.
Randall and
you know what I'm talking about though, right? He had a good season, not this past season, but the one before. But anyways, those guys aren't good enough. There's so many decent free agents that you could just to help your team that they don't even attempt to sign.
I know.
The
thing
really
is, the Packers through the draft, and then they'll sign the guys that they had through the draft.
You guys talking about Gunther?
No, it wasn't Gunther, but Gunther was really bad. What didn't he have?
Gunter. They have Gunter, the guy that Adam said, and I think the other one was Quentin Rollins.
Quentin Rollins is good. Yeah.
Also known as Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins. Yeah, I was always thinking. They have 3 people maybe. That defense is so shot, and we always talk about how.
And they just lost Hyde, right? So
yeah, well, Hyde's
a good move for the Bills. He's a player in this day and age in the NFL. He can play corner, can play safety, cover tight ends, cover slot receivers.
Hyde's excellent. I think he's one of the more underrated people coming into this free agency. So I think that's a great exception or a great thing for them, especially since they lost a couple of people. The Bills lost a couple of people. Should I add something I was going to say? I forgot. I legit just forgot what I was going to say. But I think Micah Hyde's a good player, good talent. He's going over to Buffalo, which they need some players to help them out because their organization's very whack. But
Carlos says Charles Woodson. Yeah, they should bring him back.
Charles Woodson, legend.
Carlos always says Dylan. Carlos always already said Dylan is the GOAT.
Legend. I know Carlos. So, but yeah, it's an interesting situation. I think Green Bay's like we talked about. Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. We talked about how Clay Matthews is overrated. So the fact that he's still there, he's still making.
He is overrated.
He's still getting.
I put him on my top 10 overrated list, and people are like mad at me because I gave all the facts that he's not like good anymore, and they still mad at me.
Bam,
he's not good anymore, but that 3-year stretch where he was pretty dominant,
yeah, exactly.
That gives him credit to some extent, but he's not good now.
That's the thing. We were talking about overrated players for 2016.
Oh, okay, yeah,
not overrated players of the last 10 years because he wouldn't probably make that list, but he has not done anything in the last couple of years that go, damn, I need Clay Matthews on my team more than any of these other guys. It's not a thing. Micah Hyde was exceptional in that time period last season where they had nobody, where quarterbacks were dropping like flies. He was the only person that was like sustainable on their team. Now he's gone. Green Bay and Mike McCarthy don't know exactly who they want next. Like it's just the Aaron Rodgers show. And Bill Belichick obviously knows Tom Brady's really good, but he's not going to focus just around him. He's going to get more pieces.
And they're going to draft TJ Watt though. They're going to get some Watt blood there.
Who, the Patriots?
Just try hards.
The Patriots or the Packers?
The Packers.
Okay,
TJ.
that makes sense. Yeah, he's from there, right? He's from Wisconsin.
He's from Wisconsin.
Yeah, he's from Wisconsin. He played
they need a lot of help on that defensive side. So they could pretty much take whoever, and people would be like, if it's a defensive player, yeah, that probably makes sense.
Can I please talk about? I really want Christian McCaffrey, bro. I really hope that turns out
a dominant player. And I saw that video with Shannon Sharp talking about how if he was black, he'd be a top 10 pick, which is very interesting. He's really good, but I also I think the only system that would really work for him, 100%, is the Patriots. I have that feeling he could be.
I think he's so close to Reggie Bush. People don't actually realize how close he is to Reggie Bush.
He's a better Danny Woodhead. I know as much as you love Danny Woodhead, he would be that explosive piece.
I think he's way better than Danny Woodhead, and I love Danny Woodhead.
I love Danny, but
Danny's like a great third down back, but Christian McCaffrey could be more than that.
Well, it's one of those things we'll have to see because his tape was really his tape at Stanford's unbelievable, and then he tested really well as well, right? So it's
but again,
two things. It's
nobody.
Just still,
again, though, it's the white running back thing, bro. It's even if I was drafting, I'd be like, I don't know, he's a white running back. I don't. Honestly,
that's not a racist thing towards anybody.
That's not racist. That's how it is. When was the last? This is a fact. When was the last time a white running back was taken in the first round?
It's probably been fucking 20 years at least. Honestly,
when was the last time a white running back was actually a lead back? Peyton Hillis for 1 year.
Zener on Detroit last season.
Oh yeah.
Oh god, Zener.
Zener, man.
Zach Zener. Oh,
he was only missing the big elbow pads, nothing else, just the big ass fullback elbow pads, just two-hand tucking up the middle. That's what he was missing.
Oh, that's awesome. What was I going to talk about? Okay, so Bodo Winter, my boy. He said, if you have zero offense, no matter how good your defense is, you're going to end up losing. There are outliers like the Ravens or the Bears back in the day, but you need an offense. I totally agree with this.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need that. You need kind of a complete team. Obviously, you need a good enough defense, but I think it's switched. Everybody says it's still defense wins championships. And sure, I'd kind of agree with you, but if you look at the teams this past season and over the course of the last few years, sure, defense overall you would say that they win championships, but the Patriots had the #1 scoring defense. But that identity of the team was their offense. You look at the identity of the Falcons, they're an offense. You look at the identity of the Steelers, they're an offense. You look at the identity of the Cowboys, they're an offense. You look at the identity of the Packers, the Raiders. All these teams in the playoffs last year were all offensive teams.
To me, you're either going defense balls out or you're making an offensive stand.
And you even look at the team that won 2 years ago in the Broncos. they were built on their offense, and it just so happened that their defense was phenomenal. Now, I'm not saying their offense was good, because it wasn't, because Peyton Manning sucked that year, but they still had really talented players. They still had Demaryius Thomas. They still had Randy.
They weren't making a lot of plays.
They still had C.J. Anderson. They still had all those guys. I mean, they still had really talented players. It wasn't like the Ravens of 2000 where they had Shannon Sharp, Trent Dilfer. Legendary
pair, by the way. It's to me, like I just said, it's you either going defense balls out. Has to be top 10 best defensive of all time, like shit, like the Broncos of 2015 or the Ravens of 2000, etc. Yeah. It's weird. Wait, 1985 Bears, 2000 Ravens, 15 years after that. That's weird. But yeah, you just have to make.
Well, even the Seahawks were balanced though. I mean, Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, a good offensive line at the time.
At the time, but now they're
a decent offensive line, better than they have now.
So yeah, to me, it's like it has to be more of a mix, because it's more of a team wins championship. So I don't know. I personally like more offense based, with a couple of good defensive players.
Yeah. Anyways, we got any more signings to talk about before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I think we talked about everything that's come out so far. Well, we'll probably make a separate
all the
video.
big ones.
Yeah. If Tony Romo gets signed, either Mitch will make a video, I'll make a video, somebody will.
Russell Okung, that was actually pretty big.
Oh yeah,
we'll probably be here tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll probably be back tomorrow. I won't be on here as long because I got to go to work, but yeah.
Good shit. See what I can do. But the Eagles, man, Jeffrey. Call Amy jerseys up. Amy jerseys up. You tell them.
Eagle.
Hook me up with a Jeffrey jersey. I'll wear it for 2 years.
Until he gets cut.
Yeah, until he gets cut. Yeah. Until they sign him for a huge deal and then he gets injured.
Probably, yeah. Anyways, guys, it's been Mitch, Dylan, Adam of the Bottom Line View. We really enjoyed just talking about free agency with you guys. We will be here tomorrow. What time do we want to say to these people so they can come here whenever, when it starts? Do we want to give them a time right now?
Let's not give them a time, but I will say earlier than what we did tonight. Just to say that.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'm free. You know what I have been doing? Well, I'll tell you guys. I got my old Xbox. I've been playing NCAA football. I don't know if anyone in the chat. It's actually the best game that's ever been made, man.
Good.
Just thought I'd shout out to NCAA football. They got to bring it back.
Yes.
They do. I love those games. All right, guys. Mitch, Adam, and Dylan. Peace out.
Peace.